And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel, and today we're taking a look at Godzilla Tokyo Clash. This is from Funko Games, designed by Prospero Hall, and I know there's a lot of people out there who love Godzilla. I enjoy the new movies. I can't watch the old stuff. It's just too weird for me. But I get that a lot of people like them. I know people like Godzilla, and what's not to like about a giant lizard destroying stuff? The problem that we have in the board gaming industry is that almost consistently Godzilla board games are garbage. There's very few big giant monsters fighting each other games. The most well known is King of Tokyo, but you know, there's none that has all the different kaiju from Godzilla. And that's what we want to see. I mean, most of the Godzilla movies, yeah, they fight tanks and planes and what have you, but we want to see them fighting each other. You want to see these giant kaiju just wailing on each other. Well, this is a game that allows it. It's for 2 to 4 players. Let's take a look. In this game, you're going to build a random map that's going to have various large and small buildings placed on it, and you're going to put the monsters on. The map size is going to change based on the number of players. You can see how the maps would look like if you're playing with 2 or with 3 players. You're also going to have this event track over here, and what's happening in this game is that the humans are trying to suck out all the oxygen in the air to kill the monsters. This is going to move 1 each round. As players destroy small buildings, they're going to be placing them on this track and filling it up, and when this passes the buildings on the track, that's the trigger for the end of the game. So the game could take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 turns. I don't see how that's even going to be possible. And also, when it hits these, you start putting the buildings up sooner if you're playing a 3-player or 2-player game. There's also a couple events you're going to play with per game. So in this particular case, you see that we have UFOs and fighter jets on the board, but there's also battleships, lightning generators, tanks, and trains, and you pick 2 of them. Each of these will tell you how to set up set them up on a game, and then it tells you how to play, and they'll be activating in between each round. Each of the players is going to get their monster board here, and they're going to have a track here to keep track of all their energy, and then King Ghidorah actually has a head meter to show how many heads they have at any given point. And you also have a deck that matches your player. So if I'm playing Godzilla, I'll take the Godzilla deck, and these decks are completely unique to each of the monsters. There are many different cards in the deck. These cards are going to have an energy cost to play them. So you can see there are many cards that are free. So here's one that costs 1. The Mega Heat Ray here costs 5. There are also victory points, and that's a big part of this game. Whenever you attack another monster and do a certain amount of damage to it, let's say I hit you for 3 damage and you're Godzilla, then I'm going to draw 3 cards off your pile, and I'm going to pick the highest one to put in my victory point pile. That does a couple things. It takes that card out of your deck, but also gives me victory points. It also means if I hit you and I do, let's say, 2 damage and draw these 2 cards, oh well, I guess I'm not going to be getting any victory points that round. So players are going to have a handful of 5 cards, and they're just going to take turns around the table until everyone passes, and then you'll discard as many cards as you want, draw up to 5, go through the events of the other stuff going on, and go back so you can score more points. So what a player can do on their turn is they can discard a card to do their special ability. So for example, Godzilla here can discard a card to throw a vehicle or another kaiju 1 space. Or they can move 1 space with momentum. So they can discard any card to do that. Now, what momentum means in this game, there's a lot of cards that have momentum on them. So for example, this Rush says move 3 with momentum. That means you can then play another card. So momentum lets you kind of chain your cards together. Many cards will have attacks on them. So for example, this is a 4 attack, and it has range 2, so you'll be able to hit another kaiju that's a certain distance away. That Mega Heat Ray, you can see, is a 6 attack. with a range 2. If you do an attack to somebody who's in the same spot as you, instead of attacking them, you can throw them a certain number of spaces. You can throw them into another kaiju, or you can throw them into a building. Players can also play defensive cards, if they have the energy for them, to block attacks that are made on them. So most of the cards are move around and attack creatures. There's also permanent enhancements, like this power-up. I can put this in play, and I just put this in, it stays in play. When you make a ranged attack, discard this card to increase the damage by 1 and get an extra trophy. And like I said, each of the decks is very different. So you can see this deck carries Strafe and Horn Laser and Stomp and Drill Attack and Sturdy Shell. Mothra has a lot of ranged attacks and Resilience and Dodge and Supersonic Flight and Poison Scales. And King Ghidorah, Thunder Spear, Gravity Beam. King Ghidorah has a lot of cards that add to their heads, and then depending on how many heads, some of them, when they play this barrage, they can do extra things as long as they have enough heads to pull it off. That's what barrage means on their cards. Now the kaijus are moving around the board, and while they can't necessarily attack buildings, they can throw other kaiju or even vehicles into buildings. When they do that, they destroy the building, which gives a certain amount of energy. All buildings are the same, it's not secret. And the vehicles themselves may give energy. They also might give special abilities, like this building lets you look through your discard pile and take a card. The big building is just worth 4 points when you take it out. The power building gives you 2, and this one lets you pull one back from your pile. The radar lets you look at an upcoming card. And this one lets you draw an extra card, the power building here. So there's also the small buildings, and you can blow them up, and they're worth 2 energy each. And that's your main way of getting energy. You're going to need to blow up buildings. And some of the kaiju, Mothra in particular, has other ways of gaining energy, and you'll need that energy to play your cards. Whenever you damage the monster who has this, one monster starts with this at the beginning of the game, you'll take the King of Monsters token from them. This is worth 2 points at the end of the game and also lets you draw an extra card each round. But every time someone else damages you, you give this to them. So this will be passed around. That's basically it. When the game is over, you're simply going to count up victory points, and whoever has the most is the winner. So we see the figures here, which are essentially rubbery plastic with a bit of a wash on them. They're really well done. Mothra comes with a stand, but the other ones look cool, and having these buildings is pretty neat. And they're all the same here, and all the what they do is listed right here, how all the buildings do. These special abilities, I would say everything is really well done. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of the weathered look of the cards, but I know some people will like it. The artwork seems really well done, and it looks really cool. If you like the Godzilla theme, it's definitely here in this game in spades. I mean, I just like even the aliens, if you like that old cheesy look to those old Godzilla movies, I think you'll be very happy with how this game is. And it all fits inside the box look itself. I like, on the sides and stuff, it shows the different monsters here, so that's kind of cool. So let me start out by saying, spoiler alert, Godzilla's going to get a seal of approval, but I want to point out a couple things. Barely. But I kind of waffled on this one back and forth, and I'll tell you why. First of all, the 2-player game of this is pretty bad. If you're going to play with 2 players, it's just not that interesting. The whole game is about kaijus hitting each other and throwing each other in buildings. If there's one other kaiju, you just walk back and hit them, they hit you. If there's 3 or 4, the game, the 3 game is twice as good as a 2-player game, and the 4-player game is twice as good as a 3-player game. That's just the straight up truth of it. So if you're going to play this with 4, worth it. If you're only going to play with 2, I wouldn't get it at all, honestly. So that's one small negative. The other negative I might say about this game is I felt like while the energy system works, it's a little intuitive. It's a little weird to realize that you have this big kaiju King Ghidorah and you cannot smash a building. You have to throw a vehicle into a building or another kaiju into a building, and then you get the energy from these buildings and things like that. And manipulating an energy system back and forth feels a tad too complex for how silly the game is. I mean, at the end of the day, you just walk around smashing each other. And that's where the game is best. It's at its most fun. We're just walking around smashing and blowing things up. And for people who like that, you're going to enjoy it because the game does that. But there's that small hurdle at the beginning, and I've had to explain to several people now that no, you just can't go stomp on a building. You actually have to pick up a vehicle and throw it in a building and what have you. The vehicles are all similar. The fighter jets fly back and forth. The trains move on tracks on the board. The tanks just go around and shoot at people. And I like that they add a little bit of flavor, but at the end of the day, you're fighting the other kaiju. Now, on the positive side, the kaiju are very different. Mothra is the most agile of the kaiju. She also can heal a little bit and it can dodge attacks. I think almost all their attacks are ranged. Godzilla feels like the strongest, although King Ghidorah can be the strongest, right? He starts out not that strong, but can get to be that strong by growing the multiple heads. Once you get into the groove of the game plays fairly quickly. It's about 45 minutes to an hour. Like I said, it's just big fun, smash the other person. And if that's what you're looking for, and I assume if you're getting a Godzilla game, that's what you are, then you will be satisfied with that. Coupled with very good component quality, considering the price point of this game. I was very impressed with that. And the inevitable expansions, which I'm sure will show up. I'm obviously not a huge Godzilla fan because I know who Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah are from the movies and stuff. I never heard of this cockroach thing, monster that's in this game. But hey, hooray! You know, and I also liked how different they felt in that sense. I enjoyed that asymmetry, of the game. But at the end of the day, we're just punching each other, drawing victory point cards to see who wins. It's fun. Very tactical, not a lot of strategy, but just very tactical, punching back and forth. And if that's what you're looking for, then this game has nailed it. Finally. Dice Tower Judgment approved.